This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, SSIC Inner Circle. Nick Bauer here at the silver microphone, SSIC's silver microphone. I don't know why I decided to say that. I've never said that before, but I just go ahead and said it, so there we go. We are smack dab in the middle or very beginning stages of how to find your next deal, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. This series is talking about how the creative ways we can find our next deal, and the things that we need to be doing in order to do that. So check it out, guys. The whole reason why we are doing any type of extracurricular activities for marketing to begin with is because the better or the closer you get to the homeowner, the better the deal becomes. If you're just plunking properties right off the MLS and buying them to rehab or buying them to keep into your rental portfolio, there's stiff, fierce competition, and if that's the only place that you're looking on the MLS, you're not going to last very long in this business. Can you find good deals on the MLS? Yes, and we're actually going to be talking about that today. But for the most part, guys, one or two a year you might pick off there, maybe more if you're really diligent about it and you're very, very quick and you have a lot of stuff going on. Maybe you're very quick with making offers. But the whole reason why we're going to be doing stuff outside of the MLS and looking at tapping into these hidden markets to begin with is so that we can get to the best deals. The closer you get to the homeowner with no middlemen involved, the better the deal becomes. So that's what we're talking about in this series is how to get to the homeowner, how to get a homeowner to raise their hand and call you and say, come buy my house. How do you get a homeowner to go to your website and submit information about their home and how you can contact them so that you can follow up with them and see if it's a house that you want to go take a look at. That's the whole name of the game, guys. You figure that out, you make a tremendous amount of money in this business. Um, there's probably over 100 ways to find houses. We're not going to cover all 100 in this series, but we're going to cover the ones that are going to be the most impactful and the things that we can take action on right now. And I really want to spend a lot of time on these individual things and the strategies that we can use and employ, and the action items that we can do to make these things happen, rather than just saying, oh, buy from banks. Okay, move on. Buy from the MLS. Okay, move on. Now let's dive into these and really talk about what it was. So we covered 3 last week, and this week I've got 4, maybe 5 we can get to, depending upon how far we get through. So we're going to be talking about how to buy from banks, the actual 3 stages of a foreclosure, which we've covered recently, but just to kind of give you a good idea, we're going to review that. Buying from banks. We are going to be talking about how to buy from the MLS and what really to be looking for, so that can greatly reduce the amount of properties that we're looking at, and kind of have some of the cream of the crop come to the top. And we're going to be talking about calling for rent signs and calling for sale by owners. And if we hit time, 1 or 2 more. But we're going to dive into those and get into that. I guess let's just go ahead and get into that now. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited that you're all here. And if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and put that in the chat message there, and I'll make sure to get to it. And since we don't have hundreds of people on like we did for our SSIC's webinar yesterday, you can unmute yourself and just ask a question too. But if you want me to repeat something or slow something down, just go ahead and type that in the box or just unmute yourself. We sold our building yesterday, and I'm assuming that's the Suttons. Congratulations. Steak dinners tonight. Okay?
Yep.
That's what we had.
Yeah.
Good. Congratulations. I know that's been a big thorn in your side. It's been kind of the thing that's been preventing you from taking action on a lot of things. And so I'm expecting to see big things from you guys from here on out. Go buy some buildings. Also, kudos, before we really get into this, kudos to Marilyn. I don't know if she's on the call tonight. Let's see here. But she's got a deal that she's almost done with that she's been rehabbing. And she called me about a deal today that had some creative financing options. She could possibly potentially buy that property subject to with a small down payment with the balance of what she's going to buy it for due when she actually sells the building. So there's some really cool stuff. She's like, I don't know, this sounds weird. Is it possible? I'm like, yeah. I kind of walked her through a couple things she needs to be looking out for. Um, not sure the building price that the seller wants is going to be one that even with a subject to deal, it's going to work. But kudos to her for chasing down leads and getting off her fanny and going out and doing stuff. Seriously, that's really cool. And for those of you not familiar with the term subject to, it's basically someone deeds you the house and you take over their mortgage payments. It's a pretty cool strategy that allows you, it's a very creative way to finance a deal. It can allow you to pay maybe a little bit more than if you were to go out and have to get secure financing for that project. It's not for every situation and it's not for every seller, but for the right motivated seller, they'll do anything to get out from underneath this house. And we've certainly bought property before with that strategy. A couple things you need to look out to. I'm not going to go into that here for this training call, but it's always something that can maybe set you apart from someone else that's out there looking at the house that might allow you to make an offer on that and create a win-win situation for a seller. So kudos for Marilyn for faking it until she makes it, because she wasn't totally familiar with how that works, but she's heard us talking about it before. She called in and said, hey, I might have a fish on the line here. What do I do? And we spent about 5 minutes and kind of walked her through some things. And congratulations for going out there and doing that. So, okay, guys, we're going to be talking about banks first, how to buy properties from banks. And I've got some things up here. I want to get to, hope you guys can all see my screen. Google, how do I find small local banks? And I got to minimize my screen here. Okay. Local St. Louis banks. So if you see here, guys, you should get a list of the top 20 small local banks here in town, and you should employ this strategy. But let's see, Royal Banks is a good one. St. Louis Bank is a good one. You know, the larger banks, this is not going to be as effective for, trust me on that. The larger national banks, it's going to be pretty hard to do. But just Google search it. Ask who other people are banking at. Carlton Bank, Rockwood Bank, FCB Bank, American Bank. The challenge with this strategy, I'm going to tell you right up front, is there's not as many banks that have properties that they're taking back right now as there were in years past. And so it's very, very slim pickings, but it's still a really good idea to go after this. And you can be very targeted in this approach. But I guess before I go any further, let's talk about why a bank would have a property on their books to begin with. Excuse me. So why a bank would have sorry, I'm playing with my settings. So why would a bank have a property on their books to begin with? Well, let's talk about the 3 phases of a foreclosure. The first phase of a foreclosure is the actual when the homeowner stops making their mortgage payments and they get a notice. Okay, they get a notice from the bank, from the bank's attorney, the trustee, saying, hey, Mr. Homeowner, you have not been making your payments. We are going to start foreclosure proceedings on your house and take that asset back and kick you out because you have not fulfilled your obligations under the promissory note that you've signed with us that says you're supposed to pay us. So you have not paid us, so we're going to take the property. In Missouri, it's typically, I believe it's 28 days that they have to give notice, public notice, and then after 28 days, that the bank will foreclose on it. During that pre-foreclosure time, you can get that list and you can market to those folks and you can try to buy their house. In my experience, most of those have not as much equity and they might be upside down on the house. It's not nearly as much as it was years ago when everyone was upside down, but there's not a lot of equity in some of these deals. Some of them, they owe 50,000 on it. They've been paying on it for 30 or 25 years. They started out with $150,000 or a $200,000 note payment, and now they paid it down to 50,000. They've only got 10 years left on the mortgage, and it's worth $200,000. Yeah, there's those deals that are out there, and you can get those lists to market to, but more often than not, you're going to run across people that have little or negative equity. And so that is a downside to that. You can send letters to those folks and try to do a workout solution. If someone has little or negative equity, you'd have to work out a short sale. And if no one's ever explained what a short sale is to you, a short sale is basically when the bank allows a homeowner to sell the property for less than what's owed. And they'll write off the debt. The homeowner gets to sell the house and they get to wipe their hands clean and move on. You can work out those deals and you can buy a good house. I choose not to have anything to do with short sales. You are going to run across people that you might have that situation. If you do any type of marketing, there are people that are upside down still. And what I would highly suggest is hooking up with someone in town that can process that short sale for you and get that off your desk. 2014 was the last short sale that I've ever completed. I will never do that again because that process took 18 months. Back from 2008 to 2014, we were doing a lot of short sales because that's how we could sell properties or that's how we could buy properties. And we did a ton of them and we were pretty good at them, but I always had a short sale processor, someone that was doing our short sales, because if it's over 3 pages long for paperwork, I don't do it. I can't stand paperwork. I'm pretty good at it. I can if I absolutely have to, but I really choose not to do that. So I started working with processors to process our short sales, and they would do primarily most of the paperwork for us, and then we would just have to put the deal together. However, this last one, I mean, I guess the average time was 4 to 6 months because it takes a long time to get them done. Short sale is not, oh, it's going to be a quick sale. Now, short sale is, again, the bank allows a homeowner to sell the house for less than what's owed. And but the process takes a long time. Now, since I haven't done it in 4 years, I really can't speak to how long it takes. I really don't know too many people that are even processing a lot of short sales right now, so I don't know all the ins and outs and intricacies of it. I know that you still have to have a hardship. There has to be a hardship, medical bills, divorce, loss of a job, something like that. They won't just write it off. And it's been tougher to get those things done. That's why I stopped doing it in 2014. Can you still do them? Yes. Do I have a resource for you? Unfortunately, I don't right at this time. However, you probably can go on some Facebook groups or ask some people around, maybe even ask people on SSIC's list who's processing short sales. I think Chip Wood over at Wood Brothers is doing or LK Wood, excuse me, is doing short sales. They do short sale processing. It's about the only person that comes to mind. Again, let's move on from short sales. It's not a big thing that we want to be going after. If you run across someone, you need to have that outlet. Remember, we want to refer stuff out as necessary so that we can potentially get referral checks in the mail, wake up money. Now, if you have a real estate license, that makes it really easy. But if you do refer a short sale over to a short sale processing company, make sure that you want to be able to put an offer in on that property and start that process out. Just don't send it over to them and not having the opportunity to make an offer on it. So anyway, that first portion of the first phase of the foreclosure process is the actual pre-foreclosure phase. Okay, you can contact people if they have equity. You can contact people if they have little to no equity or upside down or negative equity, and try to work out something. Maybe you can buy the property there. Second phase of the foreclosure is when the actual act of the foreclosure, which is when the bank actually at the courthouse will call an auction, cry an auction, and they will actually take the property by force. You can go down and bid on those. That is a strategy that's probably not for beginners. It's very in depth, and you really have to know what you're doing. You got to understand title work very, very well. You got to know how to do all of your due diligence very well. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to get inside of the house, and you need cash that day. There's a lot of intricacies to that process, but that is something that I know a couple Inner Circle members have done. I certainly have done it, and it can be done, but you gotta have a really good handle on this business. The first property you buy, courthouse steps, if you haven't been trained on how to do it, it's not. They don't say, okay, we're doing 123 Main Street. Who wants to buy 123 Main Street? They make it really freaking hard for whatever reason. It's not simple to do. Yeah. So, but I will say this: I met a gentleman maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, somewhere around that time. I do want to tell this story just so that I can really impress upon you guys to respect that process. If you think that might be something that you want to do down the line, you really have to learn how to do that. I met a gentleman about 2 months ago. He bought a property at the foreclosure auction, and he called me and said, "Hey, I just bought this property. I think it's a pretty good deal, and I'd like to wholesale it. Would you like to buy it?" And I said, "Okay, well, what's the address?" And he told me the address, and he says, "I think it's about a $450,000 house, maybe 425. I think maybe it needs $50,000 of the work, and make me an offer." And I'm like, "Well, sounds like a pretty good deal. You want to sell it to me for 200,000, and it needs $50,000 to work, and it's worth over four. That sounds like a pretty good deal. I'm definitely listening. What'd you buy it for?" And he told me, he said, "Oh, I got it for 145. Here's the deal. You're not stealing any properties down at the courthouse steps. Just bar none. You're not. Okay. And if you really got that property for $145,000 that's worth $450 and only needs $50,000 of the work, you have effectively stolen that property." And so a big red flag went up for me. And so I looked up the property, and while he was talking, and he kept giving me some more information. He's like, "Yeah, no one else was down there. It was really strange. No one else was bidding on it." So, I was like, "Well, sweet. I guess everyone stayed home for whatever reason." Second red flag. And so then I finished my quick little research that I was looking up, and I said, "Oh man, are you sitting down?" And he said, "Yeah, why?" I said, "Well, do you ever run title work on these deals when you buy them?" He's like, "No, I've bought about 10 of them. It's never been a problem." And I said, "Okay, well, you might want to order a letter report on this property, because I'm pretty sure you bought a second. You bought a second mortgage." He's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Well, you bought a second lien holder position. There's a first mortgage that's still out there on that property that you're going to have to satisfy in order to sell this house." I dug a little bit deeper, and it's only worth probably 325, maybe 350. And his repairs might be correct, but he's got a $233,000 mortgage that he's got to satisfy on the first, plus his 145 that he already paid for it, plus $50,000. He's not got the deal that he thought he did. And if he had done a little bit of research before he went down there, he would have known that he was buying a second. And second of all, no one else was down there on what he thought was a great deal. It's just kind of a red flag that just kind of spoke out to me. It's like, guys, you really need to understand that process and respect it, because you can get sideways on a project really, really quick. Yeah, it's a bad day for him. But in any event, that's the foreclosure auction. First stage is the pre-foreclosure. Second stage is the actual foreclosure auction where they cry the sale. If no one else is bidding on the property and the bank takes it back, now it enters into the third phase of the foreclosure, which is the actual, the bank owns the property. It's an REO asset, real estate owned asset. Okay. And I know we covered this recently, but I want to review it because this is what we're going to do is we're going to try to buy an REO property from a bank. In doing that, you're going to be barking up the wrong tree if you go after the national banks. Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they're just too big. They have entire departments that handle this kind of stuff. They contact with a local realtor to get those properties sold, and they work with realtors that specialize in doing that. And there's some really good listing agents here in St. Louis that specialize in selling those REO assets. That listing agent is responsible for doing some cleanouts, paying the bills on it, and doing all that kind of stuff, managing that asset, and then securing a buyer and getting that thing to close. So it's a special type of agent that will generally list those properties. And for those larger banks, the best way to look for those is through the MLS, which we'll get here later on in the call. But specifically what I'm talking about is small local banks. Okay, some of those banks that I mentioned at the beginning here, that's what we want to do. We want to call those folks, go walk into the locations and try to find the people that are in charge of the SAG group or the REO group. The SAG group is a special assets group. Ask for the SAG manager or the special assets group manager or the REO manager or someone in that department. And every bank has them. Again, most of the small local banks are making good loans and have been making good loans for years. So there's a lot less of them. But there are banks that still have assets that are on their books that they have not sold yet, and they've been waiting to get to a market that it's a very good market like we have now, and they are starting to sell those off. So it could be a good strategy. Start off with the bank that you already bank at. Start off the bank that's doing loans for your current real estate business because you already got a relationship with them. And then branch out and call 4 or 5 of them. Find out who you need to talk to for each bank. Keep their phone number in an Excel spreadsheet or in your CRM or at the very least on a pad of paper, and call them once a month. Call them every 2 weeks. Say, what do you got? Can you send something over to me? I'm a hungry real estate investor looking for deals. I was just notified of a bank 2 weeks ago. A buddy of mine told me that, and he wouldn't tell me the bank because it was a closely guarded secret, but he said there's a small local bank that's got about 40 properties that they're going to offload in the St. Louis market. Most of them are, junk, but there might be 5 or 6 of them that might be pretty good. And then they have, I think he said about 100 following up with that they're going to probably release next year. I do not know the name of that bank. If I did, I'd probably share it with you if you bought me a beer. But I don't know the name of the bank. So how do we know what banks that we can go after so that we can kind of whittle this down? Which is going to bring me to this thing called the Camel rating system. This is pretty cool, guys. The federal government has, I'm not sure if it's the federal government or some sort of rating system is employed. I'll just read the description. Camels is a recognized international rating system that bank supervisory authorities use in order to rate financial institutions according to 6 factors represented by its acronym. They assign each bank a score on a scale, and a rating of a 1 is considered the best, and the rating of a 5 is considered the worst for each factor. So first one, Camels, is capital adequacy. Second one is asset quality. I'm having a bad time talking tonight. Sorry, guys. Asset quality. Third one is management. Fourth one is earnings. Fifth one is liquidity. Then sensitivity. These are the Google Camel score, Camel rating system, and read up on this because this is pretty cool. This is what you want to look for in the business journal. This is what you want to look for in the St. Louis Today. You want to look for banks that are beginning to have problems. And then that bank needs to be on your speed dial, and you need to be calling those folks. Generally speaking, by the time it hits the papers, it's been a long time coming, or at least a while. It just doesn't happen overnight for most of the time. But these stories come out in the newspaper a lot. There'll be a small local bank that's struggling. Okay, that's a bank that you want to call. There's going to be the thing is there's no, and you cannot find it. If someone would find it, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. But these camel scores are not public. There's no website that you can find that shows a bank's camel rating or camel's rating. They're not. It's not a publicized thing. The only way to find out if a bank is struggling is to read the Business Journal or the St. Louis Post Dispatch, some sort of publication like that gets reported. Or if you're closely connected to the banking community and you have a lot of friends in banking, word gets out pretty quick if someone's getting a bad Camels rating, or if they got a lot of bad assets on their book and things like that. So you want to keep your ear to the ground. If you hear that, you got to take action, and you got to call that bank and ask for the special asset group, the REO department, or a manager, or someone in those departments that might be able to help. You might be able to help them get some bad assets off their books. Okay, this is legit. It absolutely works, and it works in all 50 states. You can just call local banks, because even if a bank has a great camel score and they're a strong local bank, they've been strong for 50 years and they're going to be strong for another 50 years, they're going to still make some bad loans, and they're going to have to get that off their books somehow, because banks are not in the business to own property. They're in the business to look out for your interest payments, right? They're not necessarily wanting to hold a lot of real estate, and they're not really set up to do that. They look at it as a liability instead of an asset. So they have to sell it. So even a good bank will make bad loans. But if a bank is starting to get bad reports on their rating system here, then they've made a larger amount of bad loans than normal, basically. And they have other problems internally inside of the bank. But then they're going to have a more than normal assets in their SAG department or REO department. So when you read that in the paper, again, keep your ears out for that. Keep your eyes out for that. And when you see that, write that information down, cut that out of the newspaper, post it on your wall, and try to get in touch with the people at that bank. Some banks, and maybe some of the larger banks might have this too. Some banks will actually have on their website the way to get in touch with their special assets group or their REO department. And I know there's a couple of people inside of Inner Circle that are buying notes. There's some pretty cool things that you can do in order to get some of these properties, because you could buy the note, which is, we don't really talk about this. I'm not the expert on this whatsoever. So we actually have Eddie Speed's office come in. Joe Vanador came up last year and spoke about notes. Incredible knowledge, unbelievable. And they train people how to buy notes from banks, both performing notes and non-performing notes. But if there's a non-performing note on a bank's books, I've got a handful of relationships with some banks in town, and I call them and I say, hey, you got anything coming up that, any asset that's not performing right now? And say, no, nothing right now. Came close a couple months ago on one. That was a pretty good deal, but it got worked out at the last minute. So there wasn't an opportunity for me. But you could ask them and they say, yeah, we got some borrower that's kind of having some problems and he got bamboozled by a contractor or whatever. Getting a little nervous around that one. We might have to take that one back. Okay, cool. You might be able to get that before they even take it back. You might just be able to buy that note, a non-performing note. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do. But the main thing is having a relationship with a small local bank, being able to call them and they know who you are and stay in front of them. This is a real viable scenario. I don't do this nearly as much as I should, but I'm telling you, the thing that you want to look out for is failing banks. That's a red flag that says, oh my God, or a green flag that says they're going to have some properties for the pickings. If you see in the paper that a camel score, some bank has got a bad camel score, that's something to look out for. But just the small local bank in general, they're going to make bad loans from time to time. You want to do this, and I think this is a really good strategy. So make sure that you do this. Oh, and I should have said this from the start of the first series last week. We're going through some of the top ways to find deals. You cannot implement all of these at one time. You need to get one of these going, okay? You need to get two of these going. Then you need to get the third one going. You need to get, if you're trying to do all these things at one time, it's not going to work. Okay, so we're just picking some of the top ways that we can find properties. Get one set. So if this makes sense to you and this makes sense to your type of investing style or your type of skill set, then rock this out. Do this now. Spend the next 2 weeks in trying to make relationships with these folks, because the good news about this is this could be repeat business. This could be several properties a year or several opportunities a year to go out and do something, rather than just, if we're sending out postcards to motivated sellers, well, that's just going to be a one and done kind of thing, right? Which can be very, very lucrative, because remember, the closer we get to the homeowner with no middlemen involved, the better the deal becomes. But at some point, we want to have repeat business too, and we want to have the opportunity for multiple opportunities. And that's what makes this a really good option. So banks, 3 stages of a foreclosure. Once the bank takes it back on the 3rd stage, it becomes an REO asset, a real estate owned asset. Contact the bank's special assets group department, ask for the manager or someone in charge of that, or the REO department, and make a relationship with them, and keep your eyes out for this camel rating system, or some sort of bad news on a bank that comes out in the paper. That's basically what you want to be doing here. Okay. All right. So let's move on to 2 things. I'm going to combine these 2 things. How am I doing on time? Oh, we're doing great. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to move on to 2 things here: calling for rent signs and calling for sale by owners. I'm going to put those 2 together. Because we can kind of do the same thing, some of the same strategies. Both can be found on Craigslist, both can be found on Zillow, but basically we're going to call for sale by owners. And why would we want to schlep our services to for sale by owner? Well, if they're selling their house for sale by owner, they don't want to pay commissions to an agent, right? They want to try to sell their house themselves. What don't we charge? Well, we don't charge a commission. So right off the bat, you think, hey, this could be a really good strategy. The problem with that is a lot of times they're stingy. A lot of times they want way more than what a realtor is going to list it for anyway, because everyone's got castle syndrome. They think their house is worth way more. They think they live in a castle, and they think that their house is worth way more than it's really worth. But at the same time, they might be selling it because they owe nothing on it, and they just want a quick sale. They want to they don't want to deal with the rigmarole of dealing with the open houses, and trying to pick a realtor, and then dealing with the open houses, and then dealing with the showings, and then dealing with the inconvenience of that. They kind of just want to get this done, and maybe they'd be interested in this. Guys, I know people across the country that are buying houses by either mailing to or calling for sale by owners. This is boots on the ground, and this is going to require some work. But if there's 50 for sale by owners each week, 200 or 300 a month, maybe more, there's got to be a one or two in there that's going to fit the kind of house that is going to be in your house metrics and area metrics. So do it. If you're a realtor, it could be, a good way for you to potentially find a list, find a deal for a client that might be looking for a more retail pricing. For investors, it can be a little tedious, and it's less likely that you're going to be able to do something. But when you list your house for sale by owner, you're going to get a ton of agents giving you a call, and they want to list your house, and they're going to say, well, I've got a buyer for your house, and they come in, well, I don't really have a buyer, I have to market for it, but I can list it for you and try to do that if you'd like me to handle the sale, all that kind of stuff. And they might get 40, 50, 60 phone calls when they first list that. So you got to deal with that. Your message has to be a little bit different. Hey, I'm legitimately looking at purchasing your home. It might be something that I'm looking for. Can I come and take a look, see at it? Or can you tell me a little bit more about it? So yeah, so if you went to Craigslist and you went into real estate for sale, and you wanted to sort it by, see here, you can still sort it by for sale by owner only, right? Am I missing this? Huh. Maybe let's pull one of these up. Yeah, a lot of these are realtor stuff. I know there's a way to do this really, really quickly, but am I missing this, guys? Real estate for sale, St. Louis. There's a way to search this by owner, right? Update search. Huh.
And Nick, the text that's coming across your screen, it's just kind of blurry, so we can't really read what's saying. I can see it's Craigslist, but the text is all fuzzed out.
Really? You might need to enlarge it. Well, that's interesting. It used to be for sale. I guess they got rid of it. Huh. Well, I guess what you can do is just look up FSBO. I thought there used to be a thing here, but so if you look up FSBO for sale by owner or for sale by owner, you can do it that way. But I'm pretty sure there used to be a button here. But if you can see here, look at all the stuff that's coming up. So all these are for sale by owner, right? And you can dial in this search, and yeah, you can get in touch with them here. So for whatever reason, it's not this one doesn't have the photos coming up. But okay, so check it out. There's 418 people that we can call. All right. Now, what's cool about this, guys, is this is something I'm going to give you guys a secret. I've talked about this in the past. I haven't probably talked about this in the last year or so. But check this out. There's a company called If This Then That. Let me minimize this thing here so I can get to my account. If This Then That, which is IFTTT.com. Basically, what this means is if this happens, then that happens. Okay, it's kind of like an API call or a push notification or a Zap notification that you can automate things that you never thought you could automate before. Like for instance, um, if it's gonna be, I set this up for me a while ago, and I was using it. It's pretty cool. When I would leave the office to come home, it would send my wife a text automatically, say, "Hey, honey, I'm on the way home." And just if I was leaving the office, it would do that. If the Cardinals won, it would automatically post to Facebook for me that the Cardinals won, and it would do the game score. If something happens, if this happens, then that happens. So think about it like that. If it's gonna rain, it'll text you at 7 o'clock in the morning that you need to bring your umbrella with you on the way to work. It's pretty cool. And they do this by having these cards up. Okay, so I'll go to my account here, my applets. I haven't done this in a while, but if I have a new post search from whatever URL, and I have this set up for Craigslist, it would send me an email. And you can get pretty automated with this, because if you were rental investment home for sale over in Highland, Illinois, if you were looking for, if you had this search criteria, Illinois, for sale by owner, then if this then that could automatically email that to you. And depending upon if that seller puts the information like their email address in that listing as well, it could automatically email that seller as well. And if you subscribe to one of their services, I think you can also send them a text message if they have their phone number in there as well. So it's pretty cool. It's got some neat features. Most of the stuff that I was using this for, let me get back to this, if this then that, it was free things. But if you search through here and watch some of the videos and some of the things that they have, there's some really cool things that you can do here. Get the weather forecast, like I said, every day at 7 o'clock. I mean, we're all going to check our phones anyway, probably, right? Good. I'm glad you got that fixed, Paul. Yeah, you can send out tweets. You can do all kinds of stuff, and you can automatically do some of these things that you didn't think that you would be able to automate. A lot of them are kind of bogus. You don't need to do them anyway, but it's just for computer geeks that like to do kind of fun stuff. But you can set one up, and it's free. And for some of the more advanced things, I think you have to pay for those features. But I know that you can absolutely set up a search for Craigslist, and it'll automatically, like if you, let's say that you say, okay, Nick, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and you call the first 100 names on here, and you get, over the fear of talking with some people in the home, talking with people over the phone, and you go on a couple of appointments, and maybe you don't buy a house, but you really got the process down, and you hey, I think I can do this, and I think this is a viable way. I know what to say now. I know what houses I'm going to go after and what houses I'm not going to go after, and I really want to dial this in. You spend a couple weeks on that and say, I'm going to make this happen. Then you can set up an if this then that call, and every time a new for sale by owner gets listed, you'll get an email. If you've got a VA, maybe that VA can call all these people for you. If you have a teenager at home, pay them a couple $100 if you end up buying a house, and saying, okay, call these people and see if you can't set up appointments. Or on a Thursday night, instead of watching CSI or Mad Men or whatever reruns of Mad Men, get this information and pick up the phone and call. And you don't want to call all these people, but call the ones in the area that you want to buy, and just say you're a local professional home buyer looking at buying your home. I've been wanting to buy a house in that area. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Pictures look good. What kind of conditions it's in and all that kind of stuff. And see what you come up with. So you could set up your search here in for sale by owner St. Louis, and dial this in, and then go and call all these people, and then go to if this then that, and set up one of your searches. There's tons of YouTube videos and training stuff on how to get this done and what you can automate. but it's not that difficult to do. If you know how to do anything on the internet, you should be able to figure that out. So here's one on Nottingham for 170,000 in Webster or in Shrewsbury. Kind of cool. Looks like it was already renovated slightly. Looks like it needs a little bit of updates and stuff, but yeah, you can go through here. This is how you find them. You can also find for sale by owners on Zillow. I'm not certain that you can do an if this then that what call with Zillow, but in any event, that's a really great way to stay organized and on top of it. And then if you're using a CRM, you can put that information in the CRM. You can send them a letter. You could call them. You can do whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's a good one. Another one that you can do here, right here in Craigslist, is let me get back to my Craigslist site here. Is calling for rent signs. Now you should be calling for sale by owner signs that you see in the yard anyway. It's easy to sit in front of Craigslist and call these folks. But if you're out driving around and you're looking at some other property and you see it for sale by owner, you need to call that person too. For at the very least, just to find out what they're asking for it. I mean, that's a great way, guys, to really do some market research that, hey, this guy's asking 180 for his house. Oh, cool. You know, you're probably not interested in it, but how many people have called you? Do you have any interest? What's going on? How many showings have you had? You know, they'll probably say, listen, I've had a lot of people call me. You know, a lot of agents have called me, but there's been some definite serious buyers. And I think I might be getting an offer. I've had a lot of folks come in, a lot of couples looking at this house. I think I might be getting an offer. Well, if you're going to go on an appointment down the street to go buy someone else's house and you're calling the for sale by owners on the way over to the appointment, now you're armed with some pretty good information that's not on the MLS, right? That's really good information to know. If he says, no, I haven't had any calls except for realtors, I'm thinking about listing it with a realtor and I think my price might be a little bit too high or whatever, they might open up and tell you. That's really awesome information to know while you're going to go look by this other person's house and they say, oh, my house, the guy down the street's asking 180, and my house is better, so it should be worth 190. Well, yeah, but he's also been on the market for 3 or 4 months and he's thinking about having a price reduction and listing with an agent. I actually just talked with him. He hasn't had anyone come in. So your house really isn't worth 190, but I think your house is worth something, but it also needs work. So this is why I'm going to substantiate my offer that I'm going to offer you $42,000 for your house, because it's not a castle. It's kind of crappy and it needs a lot of work. But that's really good information to know, calling for sale by owner signs. Another thing we can do is call for rent signs. Okay, so if we go into for rent here and we for rent St. Louis. Okay, whittles it down a little bit, but now we've got a lot of places here. I would let's see, for rent, since you can't, what is going on with my screen here? For rent by owner St. Louis, and whittle that down. Now we've got real homeowners that we can actually call and see what they're at. First of all, what they're asking for places, and then if they're tired landlords. Okay, this is what we're doing. Two things. If you are thinking about buying rental property in St. Louis Hills, well, then you need to call every for rent sign in St. Louis Hills and find out what's going on with the rental market there. Okay, if you don't see a lot of for rent signs, it's a really strong thing. If you see a bunch, find out why there's a bunch. If you see just a couple of them, call them and get the temperament of the type of people that are moving into that neighborhood right now. It's really, really, really good idea to get that information. Arm yourself. You cannot do too much due diligence on a house, guys. Let me take that back. You probably can. If all you're doing is due diligence and you're not making offers, then yes, you're doing too much due diligence on a house. But the more information that we have, the better investors we're going to become. If you've been doing it for 20 years, you know the areas and you know the type of clientele and the type of renters that are going to come in. But at the same time, it's still always nice to get a really good temperature of what's going on. Call for rent sign. this is something I don't do enough of, but when I do it, I'm like, wow, I need to be telling everyone in Inner Circle to do this because it works. You get information that you can't get on Rentometer. It gives you information that you can't get from the MLS. You'll be able to talk to the homeowner and say, yeah, to the investor that, yeah, I've had 4 evictions in the last month. I've got several rental properties around here, and it's getting harder to find tenants. Well, why is that? Maybe ask why is that, or yeah, I rarely have a vacancy. This one comes up, and I normally fill it pretty quick. I've already had 20 applicants. I'm asking $850 for this place, and I'll probably get really close to that, if not maybe a little bit more. That's awesome information to know. Rentometer is going to get us close. Zillow, the equivalent on Zillow is going to get us close, but that's really good information to know. And while we're doing that, we might run into a tired landlord. Okay, so they already get the language. They understand what you're trying to do. You understand what they're trying to do. They might be done with it. This might be their first one that they bought, and they're not cut out for it. It might be the 50th one that they bought, and they're just trying to downsize now because they have too many of them. You never know what their situation might be, but call them and find out what's going on. Once you get through most of these people, then set up an if this, then that, and every time a new listing comes up by owner, have it email you or text you, and then you can call them and just get some information on it. If you're very specific about St. Louis, or if you're very specific about Maplewood, or very specific about Oakville or St. Charles or whatever, you can really whittle that down so you're not calling everybody. But it's really good information to do. It's really good information to get. It's great intel to get, and you might just run across a tired landlord that is ready to go. So then that can work with both of those strategies, guys, calling for rent signs and calling for sale by owners. The last thing I want to get to here, and shoot, I don't have enough time really to get to this. I'll mention it, and I'll try to go as deep as I can, and then I'll start off with this one next week as well. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna mention it since we're on the call here. Yeah, okay, so I'll get to it. So the MLS, and yeah, because I promised we're gonna get to it. We're gonna go a little bit over on time here, guys, but that's all right because I want to make sure that I say this. So the MLS, and I know that for us realtors, the MLS just got changed yesterday and how we log into it. But and I know that, oh, Nick, you always say that the MLS, you can't find deals there. Well, you can. The problem is that's where everyone goes, and that's where the most competition is. And you got to be stupid quick. Maybe you are going to steal a property off the MLS, but you have to really be on it. You can't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to buy some property and go on the MLS and expect to get a good deal. You got to really look. And there's tons of listings every day, tons of new listings that come up. Yeah, supply is low and demand is high, but at the same time, you can buy properties off the MLS for good investments. It just poses different challenges than if we're going to go ahead and market for motivated sellers ourselves. What we want to do to speed up our search, and I think we did talk about this not too long ago, and Brad helped me out with finding out how to do this because I don't really do a lot of the searching anymore. My wife does that. But first of all, if you're not an agent, you should become an agent. I get that question all the time. And if you want to become an agent and you're not one, then let me know because I have a link that you can get your coursework for 25% off, which is awesome. And I know that Paul just took advantage of that, and he's one of our newer Inner Circle members, which, by the way, good on you for joining Inner Circle. Are the beers on too? We got 2 new Inner Circle members last week, Nancy and Marty Beers and Paul Smith. And welcome on. I should probably welcome you on at the beginning of the call, Doofus Nick. But in any event, Paul is not an agent, and he and I were talking. I sent him a link over, and he enrolled in his coursework and got 25% off to do that. And now he's well on his way to becoming an agent. Even if you are an agent, I would suggest probably working with an agent to sell your listings. Our highest skill set that a real estate investor can possess is finding motivated sellers and finding great deals, not necessarily painting them, not necessarily doing our own bookkeeping, and not doing our own LLC work, and not doing our own taxes, and not doing our own listing of properties and stuff like that. But sometimes you need to do it to save a couple bucks because you might be thin on a deal. Sometimes if you buy a property on the MLS, you can get paid a commission, and you might not need an agent to help you out do that. But unless you've done it a bunch of times and you really understand the process, maybe having an agent help you do that and help you negotiate the deal will actually add value and save you money in the deal. So if you work with a really good agent, they'll actually they're going to earn their money, and they're going to help you out and add value to the transaction. Now that I said that, yes, you should get your real estate license so that you can have access to the MLS. Okay, and this is where we can do a lot of things. What we want to do is we want to look up and do a search, and we want to search for motivated sellers. We want to search for maybe short sales because we want to make offers on short sales. We want to look for fixer uppers. We want to look for handyman specials. We want to look for those specific keywords there in the marketing remarks, and we can set up a search. If you don't know how to do that, you can have an agent do that for you, and make it pretty simple. And you can set this automatically to email you in different areas. If you only want to do Ladue school districts, if that's your only area that you want to invest in, well, then you need to have this dialed in so that every property that is listed in Ladue is sent to you. But you want to have them separated out. You want to have the retail listings sent to you so you can get a good understanding of the retail listings, and you also want to have bank or government owned properties that are put in here. You might want to also consider about doing owner by contract, which our MLS system allows people to list properties that they have under contract. If you have all your documents in line, they'll let you do that. But bank owned or government owned, definitely you want to have that, and that's going to be able to tell you. Let's do the zip code here, 63109, and see all the bank owned properties in 63109. There's only 2, so we might want to say, okay, all of where is the, we can go by city, we can go by municipality here, we can go by area. So if we want to say area number 4, Central West End, or Central West, excuse me, there's 4. If we want to go to South City, there's 14. All right, so all the bank-owned properties in South City, well, there's 14 here. Let's go take a look at them, okay? And you can set this up in multiple areas. You can have it easily titled to you so that it's going to email you. South City bank-owned properties, Mid-County bank-owned properties, Jefferson County bank-owned properties, or specific zip codes bank-owned properties, so that you can see that, and that'll filter through the noise in your inbox, and you'll immediately open that up. Mine, when I get those sent to my inbox, I have them as investor special. So I know that if I see investor special in my inbox, that I'm going to open it up immediately, because I know that the MLS just sent me this that matched the criteria that I've deemed something that it would be an investor special. Okay. But bank-owned properties, motivated sellers, fixer-uppers, handyman special, you want to be looking for that kind of stuff. And then also you want to be looking for properties that have been on the market for a long time, maybe on the market for 180 days, and they've had a couple of price reductions. So when you're looking for properties and you have access to the MLS, you can be looking up that specific criteria, property that's been on the market for over 180 days, that's had a price reduction. Well, they're looking for an offer, and there's something wrong with that house, and maybe they've had several price reductions, and it's getting close to what an investor would pay for it, or what you might pay for it. So go make an appointment to go take a look at that property, because that might be something that you can make a lower offer on and get a property, as long as you find out why it's not selling and if you can solve that problem. But yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff that we can do in the MLS. If we were to look at some of these deals, this is now this is small. That's not my computer. It's just a small thing, a small picture. It's over in the patch. $25,000, been on the market for 175 days. Who's the listing agent on it? Michael Zuglis. Yeah. Might be looking for an offer there. They've never had a price reduction. I don't know. Might not be the best deal to begin with, but there you go. So here's another one. Again, these might not be the best deals to look for, but it started out at 34,000. Now it's at 29,000. It's been on the market for 84 days. This is really good information to look at. Let's see. Next one, Pennsylvania. Been on the market for 33 days. Just click through these. I mean, this is just good to know anyway. Boy, a lot of these look really familiar. This one just came up, and if you had this set up over in Chronolet, you would have gotten emailed already on this one. Maybe some of you guys are already looking at this. So Clayton Reese, Stephen LaRusso, listing agents that do a lot of these things. So Pernod, this is a good area right here. Been on the market for 118 days. There's something wrong with it because this is a fantastic area. Quasi decent price. Yeah. Just needs to be renovated. Ready for your finishing touches. I love the octopus in the basement. Very rare to see that. That's an old octopus boiler, not boiler. What's that thing called? Forced air. My gosh, it's getting late in the day. That thing is scary. If you're a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, and you have to go down the basement and that thing's roaring, yeah, that's pretty scary right there. You don't see too many of those nowadays, guys. But yeah, this property needs work. A nice picture of a hand here. But this could be a really cute house. My guess is this is probably not a deal at this price, but it probably needs $35,000 worth of work, depending upon on the roof and if you can scrape and paint the windows. But let's just say $35,000 worth of work. It's probably worth 140-ish, just off the top of my head. So you'd have to get that for a lot less, but they're looking for offers. So it's been on the market for 118 days. And I'm sure they maybe had some offers, but I would call the agent and go take. I love the marketing remarks. Wow, come see this beautiful bungalow in this desirable area in South St. Louis. That's not too beautiful for me. But not only do pictures lie sometimes, but sometimes the descriptions lie as well. Point is, guys, there are deals on the MLS. You have to, if you were to just look up 63139, it would take you a while to get to this one because there's a lot of listings in 63139. But if you know what to look for in the MLS, you can whittle that time down, and you can set it up so that it's going to email you the investor stuff that you want to take a look at every time a new bank-owned property is listed, every time a property with the description handyman special or fixer-upper or investors welcome or work needed or motivated seller. That's you want to be notified when those things happen. The last thing that I'll say about the MLS here, that if you are not an agent, you want to get with your agent to get this information. And if you are an agent, it's really easy to get. You want to get expired listing data. Houses that don't sell for the first time or the second time or third time with an agent expire. So this status will be expired, and what you want to do is you want to get a list of expired listings, and let's click all these options off here, and let's make sure that I don't have any other search criteria going on, and let's just say that I want to go for the entire entire St. Louis area. There's 917 listings in the past year, so let's say the last 30 days. 83 properties did not sell in St. Louis in the last 30 days. These all need to get a postcard. These all need to get a letter from you. A very personalized letter. If you got a teenager, pay him 50 cents a letter to handwrite it out. If your wife's got really good handwriting, rub her back and see if she'll do it. But if a handwritten note will get opened here, a very personalized letter. Hey, I would love to buy property. My wife and I are looking to buy a house in this area. And I noticed your house didn't sell. If you have any interest in still selling it, please let me know. I might be interested in taking a look see at it. Very personalized message. At the very least, get 1,000 postcards printed out that have a pretty nice message on it. Go to Graphics Connections and have them print out that collateral for you. And then every time you get one, handwrite the address on there and put a stamp on there and get these out. Every 30 days, look at these. There's 83 people that want to sell their house and it didn't sell. And they're like, crap, what am I going to do? Right? And all you got to do is figure out why it didn't sell. This one, you can kind of go through it and say, well, maybe I don't want to go after this one. Maybe I don't want to go after this one. Maybe I don't want to go after this one. But, oh, man, expired. Please do not contact. All right, well, maybe not call them. The McAvoys had that listed. But, yeah, go through them and say, okay, maybe I want to contact these 50 out of these 83. Realtors should be doing this. Investors should be doing this. And I can guarantee you this is a list that investors are not doing a lot of. There's probably a couple people in town that are doing this pretty religiously. But I guarantee you that they're buying houses. And I guarantee you they get phone calls, and I guarantee you they get opportunities to go out and do that. So while I just threw a lot of information on the MLS, I might go ahead and touch on this again on the last one, or excuse me, on the next one. But this is how you search on the MLS. You search for those search terms. You look for bank-owned properties that have been listed for more than 180 days, and you want to go after expireds and contact them. This might be a nice little house. Maybe it's a deal at 50. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there. Maybe it's a deal at 40, but it looks like it's almost kind of rent ready right now. I mean, you can see the newer stuff here. Find out why it didn't sell. Contact him somehow and say, hey, are you still interested in selling? They're already saving, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on realtor fees. And they were already kind of braced for maybe paying some seller closing costs from a retail buyer. So maybe your offer of, $40,000, $45,000 isn't all far off of what they were going to net, even if they did sell the property. They need to sell it probably. So it might be an opportunity. I think this one should definitely get a letter, because it doesn't look like you need to do too much to it. They don't have a picture of the kitchen, so it's probably dated and ugly, but even still, you can probably rent that out for a pretty good price. And this area, guys, in Cronolette is where we should be looking for rentals. No joke. On Ivory here, there's some really good restaurants. This is a very nice blue collar area. There's some riffraff in here. There's some streets to avoid and things like that, just like any areas of the city. But if I could pull this up really quick, this Boulevard Heights, there's new construction right back in here. I think it's right here. Sorry. There's new construction right back in here that started about 10 years ago. Totally transformed this area. There's some really good properties over here. I bought some properties over here and done really well. Obviously, Holly Hills is a really super great area. Cronolette, guys, I know people that have been investing in Cronolette for years, and it's low housing prices. It's a pretty decent housing stock. You can get pretty good rents, and it's pretty good. I think Marine Villa, actually, I'm looking at Marine Villa for some various things, because it's really close to downtown and you can get properties really cheap there. I'm not expecting that we're going to have massive appreciation, but I'm kind of looking at Marine Villa. And I think anything along this Broadway line here, if there's ever there's ever going to be another Grove district that just blows up out of nowhere, I think that this Broadway little Cronolette area could do that. There's really cool shops, bars, restaurants that are popping up, and still very little known, but there is development going on in here, and that's helping it go. I'm going to say one more thing, and then we're going to open up for a couple questions if you guys have any. But I sent out a YouTube video from the CDC Corporation, or the Tower Grove South Corporation. Can't remember their name, but I think I posted it on Facebook and I sent it out to you guys on the wedge. And right here is the wedge. It's this South Grand Historic 66, which is Gravois and Chippewa. This little wedge right here, this neighborhood, Tower Grove South Redevelopment Corporation has been going in there and systematically buying up properties and restabilizing them, targeting bad properties, drug properties, bad tenant, bad landlords, absentee landlords, and been buying up some properties in here. And I've been hearing echoes of this for a while now. But they sent me an update video this week, and I sent it over to you guys that really kind of explained what they've been trying to accomplish and what they have accomplished. This is something that we need to keep our eye on, because you can pick up some pretty good deals in this little wedge here. And a couple years ago, I wouldn't have been so hot on it, because it's just like every South City area that's kind of depressed. If you get a large concentration of multi-units in one area that's not anchored by like a hospital or a university or a large job source, it can get run down pretty quick, and it can get in this area has been kind of run down for a long time. But with a major push, someone like them doing this, they've done a handful of deals. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's 10, but that's enough to get the neighborhood started. And if 10 or 15 other investors come in here and start buying these up, we have the opportunity. You want to buy when markets are low and sell when markets are high, right? I think this is something that we should look at, and this might be a little bit longer of a term play. But if the building makes sense now, and the numbers and the cash flows there, we want to buy in areas that can also appreciate as well. And so, maybe over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, some things starts to happen here, and we can also take advantage of more appreciation than if we were to buy it in other parts of the city. So take a look at that video if you haven't looked at it. It's interesting. I'm not saying you have to buy here and you're stupid if you don't, but it's something. This is the kind of stuff that we need to look at when we hear that kind of thing. We need to be taking a look at that so that we can that can help guide our investment dollars. I think this is something that we should keep our eye on for sure. And I love Carondelet. I think there's some great areas down there, and I happen to be specifically looking at Marine Villa. There's some cheap properties there, and it's close to downtown, and I think you could do a lot with the play here. So I'm looking there for sure. I have spewed a lot of information here, you guys. We covered banks, the 3 phases of a foreclosure, how to look for failing banks with the CAMEL score, who we need to talk to at the local departments, the special assets group, and the REO manager. We also covered for rents, calling people that are renting their house out, looking for tired landlords or looking for intel. We covered for sale by owners, calling them to get a temperature of the market, stuff that we can't find out on the MLS, and to see if you might be able to buy a property from somebody. We talked about if this, then that, and having those things being automated so that we don't have to do the searching ourselves. It can automatically be sent to us so that we can get that information and be a little bit more efficient and faster than the next guy, so that we don't have to constantly every day look for that for the new listings. And then we talked about the MLS, what to look for with fixer-uppers, handyman specials, short sales, motivated seller, how to look up bank-owned properties, and setting those searches up so that it automatically emails us. That's first and foremost. We got to be doing that. And then also expireds, sending out to expireds. We covered a lot of ground here today. Does anyone have any questions about what we covered here today? I'll open it up for questions, and then we can we can kind of go from there. Like always, I've wowed you with the immense information that's coming out of my mind and into this silver SSIC microphone. And I've covered the information thoroughly so that no one has any questions, right? Okay. Is the subject, Paul Smith says, is subject to the same as assuming a seller's loan? No, it's not. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. I've got a lot of questions here. I didn't see that. Okay. All right. Well, so that was back when we were talking about that, I guess. Sorry about that. I just saw it now. Is subject to the same as assuming as a seller's loan? No, it's not. Assuming a seller's loan means you're taking over the loan. Selling a property subject to is you're taking over the house. The loan stays in the homeowner's name. And for the right motivated seller, they will happily do that. They want to be done with the house. Okay, so yeah, just put for sale by owner in the search. Got that. Switching to the desktop app versus the Facebook app seems to fix the resolution problem. Okay, cool. Oh, it's a gravity fed furnace. Okay, cool. So any other questions, guys? Anything you want to chime in on, ask questions on what we covered? Well, with that being said, I guess we're going to call it here, guys. We covered a lot of ground here tonight. I really like this series that we're doing, how to find your next deal, because again, we don't want to be doing every single thing that I'm going to talk about because you're never going to get any of them accomplished, but we need to pick a couple of these things and master them and get them down. Maybe starting with the MLS, getting that aspect of it down, getting that done, getting with your realtor, or if you are a realtor yourself, getting that information in there, dialing that in, and then having that information emailed to you every day, and then downloading the expired list and getting a mailing out. Maybe that you can get that done by the end of the week. Okay. Now that you've got that process down, once a month you're going to go in, or maybe even once a week, get all the expires for the last week and send out a postcard or a letter and stay on top of that. Get that process down, then we move on to the next thing. And maybe now we can call all the for sale by owners or start to go for those people, or calling the for rent signs, or some of the other things we talked about last week and some of the things that we're going to be talking in the next couple weeks. Get one or two of these things down, pat, working, move on to the next thing. Get that down, pat, working, move on to the next thing. And dial that in instead of trying to do it all at once because you're never going to get it done. Just trust me on that. Okay, guys, thanks for your time. I had a blast tonight. I hope you did too. I hope you guys have a very productive evening. Linda and Jim, congratulations on the sale of your house again. We will see you tomorrow. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, we have a great monthly main monthly case studies and speaker series tomorrow night. Lawrence is bringing a keg, Oktoberfest style, so break out your lederhosen and your drindles, and come on and have a hoot, holler, and good old time. Very looking forward to that. Very excited for that. And again, our 3-day event coming up next weekend, guys. If you're having trouble registering, make sure that you call into the office. We'll make sure you get registered for that. We want you there. We're going to be sharing all this information plus more. We got a killer lineup and it's going to be amazing. And we want you there at a specific time. I believe we haven't set it, but we're going to set it tomorrow. I believe we're going to have a VIP lunch and a VIP happy hour on Saturday. So if you can't make it all 3 days, at least make sure that you're on Saturday. You're there on Saturday because we're going to be doing some special things for Inner Circle folks. Again, guys, call with questions, comments, or concerns. We're here to help. And I guess with that being said, it's time for me to sign off. So go forth and buy some houses, guys. Call with questions, comments, or concerns. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. We'll see you at the top or from the top. Talk to you soon.